Hey, welcome back to the Road to Recovery podcast. I'm Ryan, joined here by the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who's going to grow a wizard beard because I told him to, Tommy, the guy with all the know-how. And so today we're talking about finding purpose outside of health and fitness surrounding your eating disorder. Because a lot of people that have eating disorders, we were in a discussion in our Facebook group, and one of our clients that we were talking to in our eating disorder recovery group was talking about ways to kind of get past this constant health and wellness mindset that I think a lot of us fall into. So if that's something you'd also like to get into and like to talk to us about, you can find our Facebook group, links in the description. And if you'd like to learn anything more about nutrition coaching, hit us up on Instagram. That is all in the description as well. But it came up in a discussion. I thought it was really interesting because it's something that we both had to figure out, and something I specifically kind of had this aha moment about a year ago now, where I was in the midst of kind of my quasi recovery, and everything in my life revolved around fitness, being as fit as possible, being as strong. And that really, even though I had gained weight, was just a manifestation of my eating disorder all over again. And that's a very slippery slope. And I think, Tommy, you'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's something we've both relate to massively because we talked about it quite a lot in the past. But I think like you actually brought it up yourself. You've got to kind of differentiate yourself from the fitness and nutrition and things like that, even though that can still be a passion, but you don't make it your driving force for your life because it can kind of keep you stuck and in that eating disordered mindset. So I think, like you discussed and we both discussed in the group, it was about finding something out with that, looking into what kind of drives you as a person. Are you an artistic person? Are you a creative person? And whatever that may be, and trying to find that kind of special niche. Even like we brought up when one of our clients actually said that he loves writing things down, and he didn't even realise that when he was looking for his passion, that probably was something that he actually could follow from there. So it's just like basically like that. It's like looking into what you actually enjoy and kind of following from that.
And I think it's really interesting because like you said, we were talking to one of our clients about that, and that's exactly what he brought up. Was he didn't really know what he loved because he had been so focused on his life, probably even pre anorexia, on fitness. And I think a lot of people in the health and wellness world, that is their everything. And I even think this goes beyond just eating disorders. I think if your everything is one specific thing, it can become dangerous. It can become impulsive and an addiction. And anything that's too much of an addictive state is dangerous to your overall well-being, whether it's just working or because it takes away from other aspects of having an overall well-rounded life. And that's what we're really all about, is trying to restore some of that and being open about our hiccups along the way. So like our client was mentioning, he likes writing stuff down. And so that's why I think we mentioned to him journaling, I believe. Yeah. I think you might've brought up journaling and writing down how you were feeling and stuff like that. And that in and of itself could really just be the outlet you need, is just simply spend more time journaling and writing and stuff like that. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that specific.
Yeah, it's kind of like we talked about, like, and even in the podcast about kind of like positive affirmations. We brought up in that where we said like journal about the things that's positive about yourself and reaffirm them daily. You actually brought up, I think it was about sticky notes and things like that, like putting them on your freezer or whatever to constantly remind you of that. And I actually said, like, you could actually do things like your screensaver on your phone, actually write things down on the, like, say, the Apple Notes and things, and obviously use it as your screensaver. And because we're constantly looking at our phones daily, so doing that, passionate about what you want to achieve, it's a kind of good way to reinforce that, and kind of, it's like kind of neurally rewiring your brain about good behaviors that you want to achieve.
And that's a good point you bring up too, because it's all of this stuff that we talk about really at the end of the day boils down to trying to rewire the neural connections that you've created and the habits that you've made. And it takes several weeks, could take several months. It really depends on the length of the habit that you've set up. Because I found myself doing this today. getting caught up again in food, in numbers, in trying to figure out what is ideal. And what we mentioned to our client too was he started noticing these very same behaviors with impulses. And we told them that just by noticing these things now openly, you're already taking that first step, even if you don't know that you are, into recovery. And so the next part is acting on it. So the minute I start getting those thoughts, I immediately will stop, shut down, and start doing something else. And for me, that escape lately has been video creation on my own channel, which is totally separate from health and wellness and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this is something that people get caught up into in a lot of things, whether it's I see it a lot, particularly in the chronic illness community. They literally become, and it's probably the same within like any sort of community that centers around any particular movement in nutrition, or like whether it's like a carnivore movement or a vegan movement or whatever. They get really wrapped in this bubble, and it's you really got to find time to do stuff on your own that's very different from anything associated with that. And so I think a good place to start would just be like what we told our client the other day, was just start writing a list of things that you are passionate about, that you love, just hobbies. And then that's where you just got to start trying stuff.
That's it. I think too often we try and help people so much, and we box ourselves into things quite a lot when we've got like a chronic illness or a mental health problem and things like that. And subconsciously, you don't even realise that it is kind of keep you stuck. So it's like you said, it's finding that fine line where you're helping yourself, you're helping others, but at the same time, you're not kind of staying stuck.
Yeah,
I think that's really, really important. So finding something that you really enjoy is, like you said, like video creation, doing it separate outlet, really important as well. For myself, it's always been about, I do like kind of different things. Like I'm a mix of different things like fitness and mental health and quite a few other things. But fitness and nutrition has always been part of my life. So it's never really been about the eating disorder for that. But at the same time, I'm cognitively aware not to make it my everything.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I want to ask you, what moments in your recovery did you start to notice having to do this as a way to like get over a hump? Like, when did you start realizing that for yourself?
Yeah, I would say probably. Well, obviously, I've had like 2 different recoveries. So the first time when I recovered for like 6 years, the first time I would say roughly it was about into maybe about the first year of actual recovery after having eaten disorder for 3 years. I subconsciously knew, but I didn't put in the full effort. I didn't go really doing it. But second time, I would say probably maybe about the last 3 years roughly. The first year, I would say out of 4 years of the last recovery, the first year I did put in a good lot of effort, but I would say about the last 3 years. But really, probably last year I've tried to be more aware of what I'm doing, and obviously making sure that my recovery is really going to the full extent that it can be.
Yeah, no, I mean, I relate to it. I don't really know if I had 2 separate recoveries, because I never relapsed to the point where like I lost tons of weight again. But I definitely had moments where I think I've just been in one really long recovery for the last like 6 years, because I remember, and it really wasn't even until a year ago when I started having other problems that I realized this whole time, the last 2 years, which I thought I was pretty much over it. Looking back, I was almost in possibly a worse mindset than I was initially when I was going into my eating disorder, because I think it's so dangerous when you think. I think the best way to look at it is always assume you don't have the full picture of what is right, because just by the minute you start thinking you know everything and you think you have it all down, you got to look at it really carefully because something's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the minute a year ago when I started discovering that I don't have the full picture and accepting that, that's when it allowed me to grow. So I think that's really an important step in trying to figure that out. And that's kind of when I realized too, I didn't even realize it till probably through the year when I started doing a bunch of like health related video stuff, that just by doing that, it was aiding in me becoming whatever my illness, my mental health problems, and it wasn't really helping me get past them. And I think Ethan, who we've had on before, mentioned this too. He had to take that step away from the eating disorder community and the fitness community for a while because he didn't feel like it was aiding his own well-being. And so you gotta sometimes you just gotta totally take a step off the gas.
Yeah, now Ethan's went right into the fitness. He's now a personal trainer and everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, he's rocking it. He's doing the stuff. Yeah, but I think it all goes back to the mindset you're in. You know what I mean? And like everybody's gonna change the way they process things. So I don't know if do you have any offhand thoughts on what someone can do right now? I know we mentioned writing, making a list and stuff like that, but do you have any offhand thoughts on if somebody's really having a hard time, like they don't do anything but think about their health or anything that's related to that's their entire life, anything that you can do to help them kind of kick off into another direction a little bit?
I would say, firstly, probably looking at things in your local area. So, is there meetup groups in your local area that you can go to? Is there maybe even trying things like an art class to try and meet people? Like, try things out that you've never done. Through that, you might actually find the thing that you're really, really passionate about that you've never really tried. So, it's about trying to rediscover yourself, because too often when we've had an eating disorder, we've kind of isolated ourselves from everybody that we love and all our friends and you name it. It's like, so you've got to, at the same point, try and kind of, through all the kind of things that's happened over the years, try and kind of find something new that you're really, really passionate about. And for me, that was getting into doing things like canny fit with my dogs. Obviously, it was basically because it was out in nature and things like that. I'm really passionate about that. So, like I said, try and think out of the box and think about something that you've never really done before, even if it's trying like an instrument or anything like that. Just anything that you can that's going to give you distractions away from actually thinking about the eating disorder, because that's the biggest drawback. We often get stuck in our own minds, and then when it intensifies, especially during lockdown, I would say, because we've got too much time in our hands. We're constantly thinking about all the negative things and everything in our life. So that's probably even more hard at the moment for a lot of people.
I think the best thing I did when COVID started was I really started ramping up trying to do videos and stuff like that, because I would have fallen into that trap hardcore. And I think that you bring up a good thing. Right now is actually a decent time if you have the ability. I know my family like a week or two ago took a trip to Yellowstone, and just getting out in nature and away from everybody really was really one of the best mental kicks I've had in a long time. It felt so good to just be disconnected from. We basically had hardly any internet connection. It was really bad. So that was great. Like any way you can disconnect, and sometimes the best thing, honestly. I mean, I don't want to discourage people from finding support groups or joining our Facebook group and getting that extra support. But sometimes the best thing you can do is not look at anything like that, because it really gets you back. Sometimes it can just trigger you back into things, or make you feel hopeless when you just see other people. Not really in our group, but I've seen it in certain, mostly chronic illness groups, where people are just in despair all the time. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help anybody else reading it. And just because other people feel that way, and it's good that they have a place, but all you're doing is killing everybody's motivation to do anything.
That's
So
it, because at the same time we're tribal beings, aren't we? We kind of like to have a support network, but
yeah.
we don't understand sometimes when we throw all our problems into the world, it kind of rubs off on other people, and you maybe somebody's recovery is better than yours, or you compare yourself to that person. But everybody's individual. Just because something worked well for one person and it didn't work for the other doesn't mean it's going to be the same situation for you. So you've got to do what's individually best for you, and whatever that is, follow that and keep at it day in, day out.
The other thing I want to talk about is this idea of like absolutism. Like there's like I only like health is my only passion. Like working out is my I guarantee you will find something else. Like if it's even if it's I even said to the guy we were talking to last week, I even said like, look, if video games are your outlet, do it, because right now it's going to be better than you putting all this extra cortisol spikes by being stressed. Yeah, there you go. Get on it. Get on. Is that? Yeah, you got it. That's sweet.
Mario Kart.
Play, game it up. My bro. Yeah, dude. Oh, Sonic. That's class. You love it. Love it. You have class, my friend. You have class. Let me tell
I'm
you.
not sponsored, by the way, just so you know.
Not yet. If you'd like to sponsor us, you know where to find it.
We're open. Send it.
But no, it really is. And we can't really emphasize it enough. It's always recovery is just like it's a constant process. And I constantly, all the time, just want a new answer to a problem. And with things like anything that's mental health, it's usually never one issue that you need to overcome. Yeah. There may be one thing that pushed you over the edge, but there's usually a huge mountain of other stuff that was just leading up to where you're at. And so that's why we mentioned journaling earlier, because by journaling your feelings, you can really get sometimes to the root of some of those things. And journaling, by the way, doesn't mean you have to write it. I've just done personally, I do it on my social feed. My Instagram is my journaling. Yeah. I kind of write out my feelings there. So if it's that could be your outlet. It could be shooting a video of yourself, and you don't even have to post it, but just doing like a video log. I've known people that have done that. Personally, that's probably something I would lean towards over physically writing, because at this point, I haven't had to write since college on any paper. So every time I try, it's like I'm a first grader trying to relearn everything. I don't know how to hold a pencil. It's ridiculous. But I don't know if you have anything to add to the journaling stuff.
Yeah, the journaling, like I would say, yeah, I think we've kind of covered that really, because what I was going to say as well, a good thing that you can do with journaling is separate two columns, and it's one column what the benefits of having an eating disorder are, and the other column is against having eating disorder. And I think if you constantly reaffirm that every single day, you'll see that your negative column far outweighs the positives of having an eating disorder.
I think the only benefit I truly ever gained from having an eating disorder was learning about the value. Well, actually, the only thing I actually gained from it was I learned how to like make my own food, because I would be the only one that made food for me. Otherwise, I would have had no interest in learning how to cook anything. At the same time, what I cooked was like 500 calories a day, so it wasn't really a cooking experience. But that's like one amongst a plethora of negatives. I could probably talk about the negatives all day long. But that's actually a really good point. I would suggest actually everybody do that. I may do that after this, just as a reminder. And that's something you can put even next to, if you do a positive affirmation sticky note, put that next to that so that it's a reminder of just how messed up it is. Because sometimes it's easy, it's much easier to let the eating disorder voice win over you, because it's very convincing a lot of the time. So, and it's usually not rational. It's not a rational voice. It makes no rational, logical sense. Looking back on it, I don't even know how I ever even like got into it. It makes no sense. Like I know why it happened, but I don't understand how anyone could do it now. And I think that's also the problem with the disconnect that we have to help bridge with people that don't have eating disorders, is they just simply don't understand it. It's something that you can't get unless you've kind of been there. So I like to compare it to having any like crazy impulsive thing, like whether it's just like an addiction to having coffee, someone who has like 10 cups a day. It's like that same thing where it's like you feel like you need, it's an impulse, you need to do it, but it's something that you can break. And that's something that we really want to push forward. And then a big part of that is by simply not doing anything associated with eating disorders, not doing anything with food, challenging yourself.
Breaking the habits daily and constantly pushing yourself, even if your mind tells you otherwise, you tell it to fuck off.
Pretty much.
Continue with that. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, is I've been doing, I'm going to say I've only been in real recovery for a year because I had this realization, but I'm still like having to do these daily things to keep on track. It's a long game thing. And even when you are, you're pretty much fully recovered, I would say, like you're doing really well. I would say though, and this is just my thought because I'm not there yet mentally, maybe you have a different opinion. I would say no matter what, because you have that predisposition per se, you're always one mishap from going downhill again. So would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? You always got to kind of be on your toes?
Yeah, that's a brilliant point, because obviously for people that know about the podcast, they kind of know our story. And obviously I've had, like I said earlier on, I've had 2 recoveries. So the first one was 6 years. And then that's that first time I didn't have any eating disorder voice at all in these 6 years. And I relapsed basically because my wife obviously had 4 miscarriages and then ovarian cancer. So, and then it was in my mind. So I think with eating disorders, you've always got that reset button, if you know what I mean. So you're always going to revert to that if something in your life is that trigger. Say it's grief or stress or anything like that. That's always going to be your reset. So you've kind of got to find coping mechanisms that are healthy instead of the coping mechanisms you were using before, which is the eating disorder. So for me, it was the grief and things that was the problem. So now what I've got to do, I've got to constantly focus on the good things and the happy memories that I had of them, rather than blaming myself for their passing or anything like that. So
that's a big part, is being able to forgive yourself.
Yeah,
and that's something that
it's kind of like you said, basically. The way I would look at it, it's like an alcoholic. If you take that one drink, you're straight back to being an alcoholic. Your eating disorder is always going to say to you in times of like despair or something bad happening in your life, or just go and make yourself sick, just cut calories. You don't need to.
That's actually really, that's a really good point actually about the alcoholic thing, because if you meet anyone that has gone through like AA or anything, like come out the other side, they generally never can drink again. Like I haven't met a successful person that's come out of alcoholism that has been able to go back to like some level of moderateness. And it's a little different than an eating disorder. Because with food, we want to get you back to that place of moderation and really just being human. And I don't want to say being like an animal, but I don't think animals like consider calories.
You can eat like an animal, though. You can eat like an animal.
You can eat like an animal. But the point is, we want to get you to a place where like you look at food and you don't see like just a number. That's kind of or you don't just see like a nutrient. You know what I mean? We have to get to a place to where it's a pleasurable experience and it's not something that you're thinking about 24/7. And that's why this whole podcast has been about trying to find things outside of it that are completely different. Because I notice when I am focusing on other things like making videos, or like when we were out in Yellowstone in nature, like none of it was on my mind because it was all being distracted. So I think whenever you're getting into those you notice a trigger and you start thinking about those things again, you start thinking about food, do something completely different. Do something that's not associated with it. And I would say, if you're at a place where you're worried about, another thing is being worried about exercise and exercising enough. I personally have given myself limits. And like the other day, my dad and my brother were going to go on a bike ride, and I was like, I've been teetering on my weight this last month. I'm not going to do this because this is going to set me back. And so I just like totally skipped out on it because it's not going to benefit me. So you gotta take those. You gotta realize that like when there's that impulse, you just gotta jump away from that mother, because the exercise one's really big. And I think you can get back to a place where where exercise is like a part of your life, but it shouldn't be your whole life. Like exercise certainly isn't my whole life anymore. I do it 4 days a week, and it's pretty tamed down as far as what I allow myself to do. I don't go crazy. You know what I mean? It's about the overall wellness thing, because you always run the risk of going too far one way or the other.
I think that's a really great closing point. And what I would say, the difference between what we're talking about, like the addiction side of like having alcohol and the eating disorder, the difference with the alcohol is that all you need to do to recover from having alcohol addiction is not having alcohol. Whereas with an eating disorder, the thing that you fear most is the thing that you need to stay alive, which is eating the food. So focus on that, and all the rest will come into play. You've got to nutritionally rehabilitate first, then work in the problems that Ryan talked about with your eating disorder. All else will fall into place. You will find your purpose, but you just need to search within yourself, be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, and follow the instructions that your recovery team give you.
Yeah, I'm gonna make one really last point with the alcoholism thing, just because I don't want anyone commenting anything that we're comparing them. Mentally, they're both extremely challenging. I can't imagine what it's like to have to go through that. I would imagine it's probably something similarly helpful as an eating disorder, but they're also two very different games.
That's it.
But if you would like to get into a group with people that do understand what's going on, you can talk to us anytime. Find us on our Facebook group. Hit us up if you would like some help with your own personal nutritional journey. We're down to help you do that. Hit us up personally, and we will see you in the next one.
We will do. Thanks a lot, guys.